Emperor of Madness: How Absolute Power Turned a Roman Prince into a Monster. History teaches us that the highest peaks of power are the most perilous. When a single man is granted total dominion over an empire that spans the known world, the true test is not his capability, but his sanity. Tonight, we leave the realm of Curgu and step directly into the archives of imperial Rome, focusing on a reign so brief, so chaotic, and so utterly bizarre that modern historians still debate whether it was political maneuvering or true psychological collapse. We speak of Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, a name of great lineage, yet remembered only by the dark nickname given to him in childhood, Caligula. His story is a devastating analysis of how absolute, unchecked power can corrupt and deform the human mind. He inherited the most powerful position on earth, and within 4 years, he turned Rome into a personal theater of cruelty, excess, and terror. This is the history of the Emperor of Madness. Chapter 1: The Boy in Boots, the Weight of Inheritance. Caligula's childhood was steeped in the grim politics of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. His name, Caligula, literally means little boot, a nickname given to him by the soldiers while growing up in military camps with his revered father, Germanicus. His early life was a constant education in trauma and loss. His father, a celebrated hero, died under suspicious circumstances in Antioch, a death many whispered was orchestrated by the reigning powers. His mother and 2 elder brothers were consequently consumed by the treacherous Emperor Tiberius's paranoia. They were starved, imprisoned, or executed. Caligula survived only by becoming a master of deception, living in perpetual, suffocating fear. During his youth, while living under the watchful, paranoid eye of the aging Emperor Tiberius on the isolated island of Capri, Caligula learned a critical survival skill: to hide his true intentions. He became an unparalleled actor, feigning humility, innocence, and even a slight mental deficiency, while observing the dark psychological games played by the elite. The historian Tacitus described him as having no vestige of honesty, merely the instinct of a snake. He witnessed executions, betrayals, and the total psychological destruction of his family. He internalized the lesson that cruelty was the only currency that bought survival. When Tiberius died, under circumstances many believe Caligula himself orchestrated or hastened, the Roman world breathed a collective sigh of relief. The beloved young prince, the last true male heir of Germanicus, was hailed as a savior. The public celebrated his ascension with feasts and sacrifices so vast that they nearly bankrupted the capital. He began his reign with unprecedented popularity. He publicly burned Tiberius's damning judicial papers, released political prisoners, abolished unjust sales taxes, and hosted magnificent games. The first 7 months of Caligula's rule are often cited as a golden age, a brief return to the virtues of the Republic, albeit under an emperor. The masses, the Senate, and the military adored him. He was a man with everything: power, love, and endless potential. but the sudden absolute freedom after a lifetime spent meticulously controlling every facial expression, every word, every twitch of emotion was too much for his damaged psyche. The traumatic suppression of his true self had created a reservoir of cruelty. The cracks soon appeared. Chapter 2: The Transformation, Illness and Deification. The turning point came swiftly and dramatically. Around 8 months into his reign, Caligula fell violently ill. The sickness, possibly a severe fever, a poisoning, or a bout of epilepsy, brought the entire empire to a standstill. The world waited, terrified that their hope would die. When he recovered, the man who returned to the throne was fundamentally, irrevocably different. The transformation was terrifying. The popular, beloved prince vanished, replaced by a megalomaniacal tyrant who believed he was no longer bound by human law or morality. The fear of death had transmuted into the belief that he had transcended mortality itself. Caligula became obsessed with the concept of divinity. He began to openly demand worship, replacing the heads of traditional Olympian god statues with meticulously crafted busts of his own face. He ordered colossal statues of himself installed in Rome and commanded that they be dressed daily in clothes identical to his own attire. He stopped being a princeps, the first citizen, and began declaring himself a living god, identifying variously with Jupiter, king of the gods, Apollo, god of the sun, and even Venus, goddess of love, forcing senators to kneel and kiss his feet. This deification was not merely a vanity project. It was a tool to dismantle the foundations of Roman power. To prove his divine power, he engaged in famously bizarre acts. He built a physical bridge of boats across the Bay of Baiae, stretching for 3 miles, not for strategic necessity, but simply to defy a prophecy that stated he had no more chance of becoming emperor than riding a horse across the bay. He then rode across it in triumph, asserting his superiority over fate itself. His palace became his temple. He would spend hours conversing with the statue of Jupiter, whispering threats and demands into its marble ear. His goal was clear: to extinguish the memory of the Roman Republic and impose an Oriental despotic monarchy where the emperor was not merely the ruler, but the literal center of the universe. Chapter 3: The Abyss of Excess, Cruelty and Contempt. As Caligula's power solidified, his cruelty became personalized and theatrical, designed not to eliminate rivals, but to inflict maximum psychological damage. He weaponized humiliation. He delighted in the psychological torture of the Senate and the elite. He would invite senators and noblemen to lavish dinners and then suddenly erupt in maniacal laughter, explaining that he could order their executions with a mere nod. His famous quote, "Oderint dumetuant," "Let them hate so long as they fear," became the motto of his regime, elevating fear above respect as the highest form of governance. His financial extravagance was legendary and swiftly bankrupted the treasury that had been carefully built by Tiberius. He would host naval battles on artificial lakes, bathe in expensive perfumes, and dissolve priceless pearls in vinegar to drink, demonstrating his utter contempt for wealth and common sense. During gladiator games, his entertainment standards became monstrous. When the customary convicts or professional fighters ran low, he would sometimes empty the arenas of fighters and instead order spectators to be thrown to the wild beasts simply to maintain the blood sport. On one occasion, he ordered the guards to seize an entire section of the crowd and throw them to the lions without cause, remarking, "I wish the Roman people had but one neck." Perhaps the most famous symbol of his bizarre reign and his ultimate contempt for the Senate was the treatment of his horse Incitatus. Caligula bestowed upon the animal a marble stall, a jeweled collar, and an ivory manger. He gave Incitatus his own house, 18 servants, and invited the animal to formal dinners. He even planned to make Incitatus a consul, the highest office in the Republic. This act was not merely eccentric, it was a profound, calculated insult to the entire political structure, a message that he considered his horse a more worthy ruler than any of them. Under Caligula, the empire was ruled not by law, but by the unpredictable, shifting impulses of a single, damaged mind, determined to prove that absolute power meant absolute freedom from consequence. Chapter 4: The End of the Tyrant, the Praetorian Vengeance. Caligula's terrifying reign of terror was doomed by its own excess. His utter disregard for tradition, his financial mismanagement that bankrupted the treasury, and his relentless humiliation of the elite created a unified coalition of enemies. Yet the final blow came not from the Senate, but from the men closest to him, his own Praetorian Guard. The plot was spearheaded by Cassius Chaerea, a tribune of the Guard. Chaerea was a career soldier whom Caligula delighted in mocking due to his effeminate voice and alleged sexual preferences. This was the final fatal mistake of the emperor, underestimating the deep personal resentment born from relentless public humiliation. The conspirators, bound by fear and shared hatred, chose their moment carefully. On a cold day in January of 41 AD, Caligula was leaving a performance at the Palatine Games, heading through a secluded underground passage to meet a group of boys rehearsing a sacred dance. The assassination was brutal and sudden. Chaerea struck the first blow, followed by numerous others. The official account claims he was stabbed over 30 times, each dagger thrust fueled by 4 years of repressed terror and rage. He died at the age of 29, just shy of his 4th anniversary as emperor. The death of Caligula brought momentary chaos, but also a wave of universal relief. The Senate briefly dreamed of restoring the Republic, but the military, fearing a power vacuum and a loss of their privileged status, quickly installed Caligula's stammering, overlooked uncle, Claudius, to maintain the imperial structure. The story of Caligula is a chilling testament to the dangers of absolute inherited power. It is a historical drama that analyzes not military might, but the vulnerability of the human ego when all constraints, moral, political, and physical, are removed. His brief, spectacular reign serves as a permanent, terrifying exhibit in the Museum of Historical Madness. The lesson remains: no crown is heavy enough to contain a fracturing mind.